Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, depending on where you are. How we doing?
Good morning,
Hey there.
good afternoon, good evening. Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, it's been a while. You said you had some surgery on the weekend as well, so you might not be doing too much talking in this session.
Yeah, I had the post installed for a dental implant. They just drilled into my jaw and put a screw in there.
Do you know, there's one time in life I'll never forget, and that's when I was getting my wisdom teeth out, and I was awake for it all. And I remember the dentist asking the assistant or whoever it was, pass me the horse pliers. And at that point in time, I knew my mouth was about to get messed up, and like these giant pliers come across. Yeah, I'll never forget that. Josh, welcome. How you doing today?
Love it.
Good, good. Nobody's using horse pliers on me, so I'm better than you.
Yeah, that was a while ago now, but no, it was a good challenge. It sounds psychotic to say that was a good challenge, but yeah, it was interesting.
Mm,
What's the weather like where you are? You freezing cold while I'm boiling hot?
yeah, pouring rain here, Vancouver. So our natural habitat, this is a rainforest.
Yep, yep. Cool. Well, I'm excited to chat about our updated roadmap. If you haven't seen it, Kyle, can we pin the tweet that has the roadmap on it as well and get that up on top?
Yeah, I'm on it.
Awesome. And it's also in the Discord, so feel free to jump in there and see what it is, see what it's like. But yeah, it's a totally different look, totally different layout to what you would kind of typically expect from a roadmap as well. And we'll talk about that today. So it's going to be pretty good. Josh, how's your weekend been?
It's been good. It's been good. Trying to get as much done as possible, and coming out of the holidays, um, it's a great creative time for me. I get to like take some time off, but more so I can focus on like the creative elements of the product, right? So it's good. Got to knock out some stuff for the narrative and some of the development aspects that we're trying to work out.
Nice one. I suppose we're not going to start just yet, but there's a couple of faces that I don't recognise here as well. But do you want to give like a 20-second recap of who you are and your role at Matrix World?
Sure. So my name's Josh. I'm the product director on Matrix World. Came in about 8 months ago. I have a background in game development, and so this getting into metaverse development is kind of what my background has led to. So it's kind of a perfect marriage. And yeah, so now I came in and kind of have been designing the model that we're using for this product and figuring out how all the pieces work together to create a viable world worth not only hanging out in, but in building in.
Sounds rad. I can see Kyle's just kind of pinned that tweet about our new roadmap as well, which is awesome. Josh, I think you played yourself down a little bit then. What's some key milestones? Like, what are some games that you've worked on that people would know about that are listening?
Well, I mean, I've worked on a lot of stuff. I've been in the industry about 25 years. So, I've worked for Electronic Arts on EA Sports games. I've worked for Ubisoft, Rockstar Games, and also for Disney on Club Penguin. And so that was a direct influence for what we're doing as well, is that Club Penguin was a very successful virtual world, and there's a lot of good learnings you can get from how we built that and ran it. Because there's actually not a lot of successful virtual worlds out there. So you want to look at the ones that have actually been successful and figure out how they manage to engage and retain their users.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. After that, got into mobile and monetization and went from there. And then just recently, before Matrix Labs, I was working for Unity on their metaverse project.
That's cool. Sorry, I did just get a call in, so I missed a little bit of what you were saying. What's your like what's your niche, your skill set that's really powerful for Matrix World?
For building it, or like
Yeah,
or
building it.
designing it. I mean, well, I'm the designer, right? Like I see the big picture stuff. I see the market. I see the product. I see the mechanics. I see it all from like 10,000 feet. So I see how it all moves together. And that's why I'm a director, because yeah, that's basically what a director does, is take all of the development aspects and ensures that they're all aligning properly to create one product. And it's a lot harder than people think. Like a lot of games that ship, is actually very, very impressive that they managed to have everything work together to create one cohesive thing. That's why most games fail, is that people can't just do that, pick up a development kit and start doing that. So, and to be honest, that's one of the challenges we see in a lot of the Web3 games too, is like the acumen for building engaging and products is not there yet. And so you see a lot of people that are, they understand the mechanics and what you need to build, but then they don't understand that those other layers are actually what drives the enjoyment of it all, right? Like you need a premise, you need a narrative, you need characters, you need all these elements to make a world worth living in, right? And if that's how people are gonna approach it. And yeah, I definitely learned this from building Rockstar Games, where it took us years to build those games because of how meticulous we are with the layers of it all, so that it feels like when you're in that game you're fully immersed, and like it feels like a real world, not just a 3D box you walk around.
Yep.
I love that you kind of hit on that, because I think there are so many games I've played in the past where maybe it's not the shiniest, thing, it's not the most beautiful to look at, but because of the layers, because of the narrative and the storytelling and everything else that went into it, the mechanics, that's what really drew a lot of people in and kept them playing for a lot of those games.
Yeah.
Because there's so much more than just what you see on the surface.
Yeah, I mean, I think of like games of the year for me this year, right? It's like Elden Ring's at the top because of the experience that they crafted is legendary. Like nobody's ever made a game that deep, that like based off of just pure visual storytelling. They don't really like let you focus on the mechanics or anything. And it's a work of art, but it's only my number two game. My number one game is actually a very ugly pixel based bullet hell game called Vampire Survivors, right? And like that, but that elicited a completely different experience. But for me, it was the depth and amount of what you could do in that game, right? It's like Elden Ring's held back by your skill level, your patience, your knowledge of the world, how much time you can invest in it. And then Vampire Survivors is like a pick up and play, grind away, unlock hundreds of things. It's just like that game I got sucked into. But like that's what I mean, right? Is like it's the experience that actually matters. How you detail it, how you design it, all of those things are important to delivering that, but in the end it's actually about the experience. So you have to start there first. You have to figure out what's actually the core experience here. And I think that in Web3 that's kind of where the problem is that the expectation is play to earn, and play to earn isn't a viable experience yet. Nobody's really cracked how to make that enjoyable for all the types of users that you need for a successful product. So that's for those models, they're working towards that. And I think that Web3 will get there. It's just going to take time, because they almost like it's something that game developers had to learn. And now you have developers in Web3 that have to kind of learn those same lessons along the way. So, it'll take time.
Good, some hot takes there, so I appreciate that. We're going to jump into some questions that we have for today. And the first one to kick us off is, why are we releasing a new roadmap? Do you want to kind of tell us about how we got to this point today?
Well, it took us some time to work on the model. Like I just mentioned, right? Like that's kind of, when I came in, that's what I bring is I can look at the product approach and then fine tune it so that it can actually pull that off. So, it took us some time to work that out over the last few months and figure out exactly how it's going to work. And then you get everything designed and scoped. And while we've both been prototyping and building aspects of it already, we are now planning to get even more steam in 2023. And we wanted to kick the year off by showing you guys the plan. So, development's very fluid. So things will change as we go, but we want to not only be transparent with what we're working on, but also begin kicking off this new universe as we go with you all towards it. So, this is the first time we can show you some of the aspects of what our new approach is. You guys have seen some experimentation in the past while we were exploring characters, world, and stuff like that. Now we have a much more cohesive picture, and now we're kind of kicking that off with 2023 with this roadmap, and then moving forward, we'll start to show off some of that in other ways.
It's good. For those who don't know, we did have a angel round funding, and that was back in February last year, where we had a $50 million valuation, and that was able to secure us $5.5 million in funding. So that also opened up some avenues for different hiring and more experience, like Josh and Michael, our art director, as well. So that kind of got the ball rolling, and now Josh is kind of at the point where we are ready to start making some moves and really get going. It's cool.
Yeah, and we've started it too, right? Like we have a prototype team who develops out the elements that need to be first like proven, and then we have our dev team who works on the actual infrastructure, multiplayer, all that kind of like all the technical stuff that we need to start building inside of. So just to get a project like this set up is mountains of work.
Yeah. This is off the script or anything like that, but is the prototype team your favorite team?
No, no. I mean, I recruited them because I needed a specific need of like, figuring out some of these mechanics that we're attempting, right? And so it's a little bit better to just have a team that can noodle away on that, and it's advantageous that way. It kind of keeps it separate, and then if it works, you can push it to dev, or you can design it, and then because you know exactly how it'll work, and then the developers can kind of rebuild it.
Yeah, cool. Back to the roadmap. So when we look at the roadmap, if you click the link tweet, you'll be able to see that as well. There's kind of 4 different categories along the left-hand side. So we've got features, art, story, and then it builds across the year as you go to the right-hand side. Usually we kind of used to seeing a start-to-end roadmap with different milestones along the way. Can you explain why we've kind of separated it into 4 different segments?
Well, what we're building is no ordinary product, right? There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of elements to build to make a 3D world worth hanging out in. This is just a snapshot of the world development requirements just to make it operational. Our full development cycle is immense to get that all accomplished. We also need to continue to grow as we go, so that we have the manpower to pull off each requirement. So it's better to break this up and compartmentalize the development. So that's why the map's kind of like that, because we're breaking it up into a couple of different approaches. Yeah.
Cool. Nice and simple. If you want, I'd love to kind of go over line by line and kind of go through features from left to right, art from left to right,
Sure.
and just give us a high level overview.
Okay, well, let's start with features. We've built out both our multiplayer and core sets of features already, and so now we finish developing those, and then we start on our social features. Our instance engine is so that each location can have its own intrinsic session. It's part of the world building aspect. And then following that, we'll start to incorporate the rest of the user features and then begin developing the progression model for both the world and for the users. And then once we have all that, we can begin developing the dual layered editor. But we'll see how that goes. The editor's, obviously a big checkpoint for us. Because we want to make sure we're delivering the tools needed for people to be able to create cool experience in the spaces. So but we need the infrastructure all done up front. So that's the plan right now for features. And then while those are being developed, the art team will be working to deliver 2 different biome sets of assets, both for terrain first, so that while we work on all the city elements, which is a much bigger package. And so we're building a pipeline for user-generated content for a few of our asset classes, so that modelers and artists can submit assets for our product. And structures, which are kind of at the core of our experience, they're a lot of work to develop. So we're still in prototype with them, but plan to have that entire system developed by the end of the year. So we'll know exactly how it works by then. And then kind of the two that are wild cards here. These are more for community and for us to like, show what we're shooting for during the year as far as like what we can show you guys. Now, that doesn't mean general marketing stuff. We're going to be showing you guys general materials as we go throughout the year, but these are more like targets that we're setting so that we can actually deliver some aspects and get you guys involved even while we're developing this. So the story timeline, well, this we want to keep under wraps initially, but we'll have some set release targets that will help divulge story elements so that the pioneers and citizens can see how they'll be a part of bringing each matrix to life. And then finally, at some point this year, we will release a public access build with a pretty much blank matrix for both matrices, and you'll be able to access your plot in 3D for the first time. So there'll be a few other things we're planning for that, and I'll share that once our focus turns to the build itself.
It's really cool. Thank you. I'll ask you now while we're talking about this, is there a set, point on the roadmap that you're really looking forward to or something that you're excited about?
I mean, all of it, really. I mean, I have to oversee it all, so I got to make sure everything kind of comes together. I guess for me, I kind of come from like a world builder background, and I get very excited about developing out a world and its premise, right? And like figuring out its language of like look and feel. And I love that side of things. And that's what we're doing is we basically have taken the original concept and now we're stepping on the gas as far as like what that actually is. Like, what is this world we're in? Where is it? How are these islands how are these matrices floating around? How are they powered? What can you do in them? What's the mystery to the world? What is there worth investigating, exploring, all these things, right? Why do I go explore other people's land plots? Like, giving reason to a world development is actually quite hard, and it takes a long time to actually like develop the world that's worth visiting, right? Like, it's a huge challenge, but I love that aspect of it.
Yeah. The one thing that you mentioned then was kind of talking about the look and the feel of the world. We've seen some of the artwork that Michael has created as well, and there's the new avatars or the way the avatars look. How is that going to compare to what we're seeing in world with the artwork that's been released?
Well, I guess you'll have to wait and see when we reveal the character models, and then you can kind of assess how the illustrated versions look versus 3D model versions. Initially it'll be quite light to look at. We'll have a couple of character models and our terrain elements, right? And that's what's in the initial artwork. So that all correlates to one another from anything we've released so far. Just really that first image, right? But we'll be releasing more artwork as we move through development. Now that we have Michael, our art director, in place, we're developing our art bible, so we can now start to show off various elements through a number of mediums. One of the things I've been super impressed with since I got here and we got rolling was how talented our concept artists are, just knocking it out of the park on numerous occasions and helping bring the vision to life. So it's really exciting to see the materials. And like I said, like this is a big part of world building is you get your creatives together and you start to riff on how you accomplish certain goals, right? So, we know what it's going to take to make a successful, engaging world for a metaverse. And so we're looking at those layers. And then once you kind of have a premise for them, you can start to work with your concept artist to kind of bring those visually to life and start to figure out what those actually are. So we're kind of going through that right now and, stepping through different concepts and developing out certain layers. And they're amazing artists. So it's coming along really nicely.
Cool. One of the things that kind of came to my mind then when we're thinking about that is you said we're going to look at sharing more art along the way, and I think that's one of the biggest things the community wants to see is more updates of pictures, in-world examples, things like that. I know bits and pieces, but is there a plan that you're going to have linked towards the development in the future to share information and share sneak peeks and stuff like that?
Yeah. I mean, our goal is to provide a narrative that helps unveil certain aspects of our world as we build it. Now that we're building and not just designing, there'll be a lot more material to share and show with the community as well. Both myself and our art director will be working with our marketing team to communicate, more aspects, but not on a specific schedule, as our focus needs to be on building. That has to be the priority.
That's cool. It's one of those things that unless you work with someone like yourself, Josh, a lot of people don't see that small changes in a schedule change the project quite a bit. And as soon as you start adding extra things into your scope or into the actual sprints that we do, it does change a bit of direction. So yeah, it can be tough. From a community perspective, it's like, hey, let's ask for more. But from a building perspective, it's sometimes a lot better to stick on that path, right?
Yeah, I mean, I knew this coming in too, right? Because I'm both Web3 savvy and come from games. So, I see how Web3 products work with their communities. It's definitely one of the reasons I stepped into Web3, because it has one of the best community aspects. And that's kind of my specialty, is in game development for communities. So I saw the potential, and I knew what the expectations are in those spaces. But at the same time, I came in knowing I was going to have to educate a bit on the reality of development, because if there's one thing that's weak in Web3 development, it's very much develop it, release it, and then worry about the bugs later. And unfortunately, that's just a recipe for disaster. So, and we see it with a lot of failed products out there that like weren't ready for prime time, or didn't have the right backers and the right you know acumen to pull it off, that kind of thing. And so I think it's one of the things we notice are the top developers. They understand when they need to just build. And yes, you can keep your community updated, but you can't allow um, the veracity of the community to push something out too early that could ruin the whole product.
Totally with you. Now, one of the things that I noticed on the roadmap, and I wonder if anyone else has noticed yet, but there's a slight change in some of the wording. So we're not going to be calling owners landowners anymore, but yet pioneers. So what does that mean, and how is that kind of playing into the narrative?
So each matrix starts out as a blank canvas, right? So it's up to the landowners, aka the pioneers, to populate their plots and help the matrix progress. That's going to be at the core of this whole experience. And so we're going to provide the tools and systems needed to be able to progress your plot, but it'll be up to the pioneers to set up and build so that the citizens can leverage the spaces provided. So it will be a symbiotic relationship needed between the pioneers and the citizens to thrive in this new world. So, the where we're starting is actually that this is a world progression product. Okay, so what that means is it starts basically blank, and then it's up to the owners of the land to then use the systems in the world to basically like terraform it into a cityscape. And, you know, that's the way that that's going to happen, is they're going to have to facilitate the people who come and visit. So be it in hosting, leasing, however those mechanics will work, and obviously we'll talk a lot more about those later on when those are much more validated. Then, yeah, you'll see the ability for the pioneers to kind of be at the forefront of facilitating a lot of this. And that's where the design model comes in, about how we design this so that it allows for people, both casual and the hardcore users, to um, help each matrix progress. And so that'll be at the core of like how do you help your land plot progress? How do you help the matrix progress? Visiting experiences and spaces and stuff like that, and moving throughout, and doing the actions of the world. All those kinds of things will then help further the matrix.
That's cool. One thing that I realized from when you're talking, then you were able to switch from saying landowners to pioneers within a split second. So you're probably one of those people that never writes last year's date on this year. I'm just making a guess there, but that was a very smooth transition. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you just mentioned then that when landowners get there, it's going to be a blank slot, like a blank plot. Can you tell us more about that experience, or that's pretty much the way it's going to start, blank spot, and then they have to wait till something else happens in the future, or what's going to be going on when they first get to their land?
Yeah, like yeah, we have the milestone one listed, the open to landowners. You know, our goal when we hit our first public build will not be about functionality. It'll be about kicking off each matrix. The premise of Matrix World is, like I said, user-driven progression, right? So each matrix, you know, we want to just at first just get them up and running so we can show off that initial state and then allow our community something to digest to kick things off. But then it'll be back to building as we, you know, we have not only an entire 3D world to build the robust feature set for, but then it'll take a lot of time to build all the other supporting mechanisms for it as well. The user generated content pipeline, you know, our the way you accumulate assets, the progression model for each user type. There's a lot still there that needs to be developed, but we can actually start out with a blank matrix with all the land plots. Like we're working on that right now. So this will just be a preview of a blank matrix, but so basically we can kick off the habitation aspect of it all, and we'll have a couple of systems in there too. It'll be worth coming to visit and you know, come back and check your land. We'll probably leave it up for a little bit, and you'll be able to yeah, it'll be light, but you'll be able to see your land for the first time.
Cool. Now, I only had one question left, and I'm not sure if you'll give me a straight answer to this one, but I'm going to try my best. Are there any clues as to what's behind the confidential placeholders?
Just more story elements.
Yeah.
We'll be unveiling various elements to show you as pioneers. We'll how they show you how the pioneers can set up and prosper, and then same with civilians. It's important for us that there's a narrative in this world, so that it's worth exploring and becoming a part of. So when you look at the challenges a lot of products in the space have, you know, we want to make sure that our story kicks off right away, and it actually like starts to develop as we go, and then the users basically take over that story, right? Like in the end, we're going to just facilitate with these systems, and then it'll be up to the users to populate, to leverage those systems to do that, and how they do that, and potentially even, you know, if it's a bit of a race between each matrix as well for resources or anything. We'll see.
It's cool. Very, very exciting. And yeah, it's a nice way to start the new year with a new roadmap and kind of see what the future is going forward as well. So thank you for being here today. That's kind of all the questions I had. So if people want to start thinking of questions, and they can raise their hand, but is there anything else you wanted to say based on, you know, about the roadmap or anything else?
Um, I guess, yeah, one thing I'll say is like with the image, I think you guys will see that we are carrying over kind of our core character. She's kind of come through the Matrix specifically and has been aged up a little bit. And yeah, soon one of the first things on that story reveal is an avatar reveal. So, you know, coming up, we'll show off the base 3D characters, and you'll kind of see how that art style then translates into 3D. And then after that, yeah, I think it'll be more about just showing off the world and what we have planned for the Milestone 1 build. I can't guarantee the time on that yet because we're still um, working on core stuff, so we haven't even started on build specifics. So we'll see when we start that out. But yeah, definitely expect to do that this year, so you guys can expect to access your land, and there'll be more there too. I just don't want to talk about it yet.
No, that's cool. Thank you very much. Carl, was there any last minute questions from you before we go to the audience?
I think we've got Ultimate coming up, so we'll let him jump in. Ultimate winner, how's it going?
Hello.
Hey there.
Hello. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. How's everything going? Good?
Good.
Right. So, it's
Happy New Year.
thanks, mate. So, wish everyone a very best of 2023, especially Matrix World team in terms of development and future future roadmap that we just revealed. Things look awesome the way it's being depicted here in the roadmap. So, just wanted to know more about it. not related exactly to Matrix World, but I was interested to know uh, about the financial reserves that we are maintaining for the Matrix World, like we did the landowner sale and the funds that we raised from the private investors. So are these funds maintained in flow, or are these maintained in stable coin reserves?
I wouldn't really be the one to ask that. I'm not really focused on that. I'm really focused just on the world development itself, and running that product. But I'm sure in the future we'll have an AMA with one of our executives that you could probably chat about that with.
Okay, yeah, just wanted to explore on the financial health and the runway that we have at the moment, considering the drop in the flow price along with the other cryptocurrencies. So just wanted to understand how it impacts the project as a whole.
Yeah, I don't know the specific numbers on that, but I do know that the core team did transfer a lot of the funds to a more stable asset and did not leave all of the funds in Ethereum or in Flow.
Right, right, right. Sounds great. And on the other side, just wanted to know if, as you guys are normally in touch with the Flow team and their development and the marketing and the core team, what do you think for the ecosystem as a whole? Because on the one side, we see the inflation of the primary token, Flow token, is increasing every day because of the staking rewards, and we don't see too much burning activity happening for the main coin. So, any takeaways on that, or anything the team is specifically doing to address the issue?
So on that one, we can't speak on behalf of the Flow team and what they're doing, but I know they are putting a lot of effort into growing the ecosystem, and I think that's going to be a big part of it. Right now, times are tough across the board with the market situation we're facing, and that's not just speaking to blockchain and cryptocurrencies. That's speaking to the global markets, right? So I think that is one thing that's having a big impact on what we're seeing now over the past, few months and what we'll likely see for a lot of this year. But I think Flow and Dapper are putting more effort than I've seen in any other ecosystem into making large partnerships, growing their ecosystem, and ultimately providing a use case for their token. And I think in the long run, that's really what gives a token value through demand and through use. So yeah, I think that team's working hard on it, and we just have to kind of wait it out, see where it goes, and remember that Flow is still a very, very young ecosystem as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's true, mate. So all good. Just wanted to have a heads up where the team is thinking as a ecosystem as a whole. As I think you guys are one of the main projects in the whole ecosystem, along with some other like Flow Avatar and a few more great projects that are building on the ecosystem. Uh, thanks for the update, and I would love to see the things build up on the new roadmap. And if there is anything we as a community can support or help the team with, please let us know so that we'll put our best effort so that we all sail through.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the support as always. So, anyone else, if you have a question, a comment related to the roadmap or related to the project, please feel free to either put it in Discord in the AMA questions channel or just raise your hand and volunteer to come up and ask on stage. So, we've got Golden. And while we wait for Golden to come up, I've got one quick question for you, if you can dig into it here, Josh. So I see we have land editor and home editor. Any hints as to kind of how those are different or what they relate to?
Yeah,
Just general.
we're gonna have two types of spaces. We're gonna have instant spaces, and then we have the exterior spaces, so your land plots. So, and the exterior editor is mainly for land plots, and then the interior decorator basically is for they're going to be the same editor. They're just going to be different states, right? And one will do like floors, and then one will do the exteriors.
Awesome, thank you. Golden, how's it going?
Yeah, everything is amazing. Just wanted to say Happy New Year to everyone. It's amazing to see such a great turnout today. Really excited to hear everybody listening to all the great news. The roadmap, I think, is great. I love to see how clear it is, and I like how you broke it up, depending on different stages of art and development. I mean, it really shows that you're thinking about us and keeping us in the spirit. So I just want to say thank you, and I love that it's happening at the beginning of the new year. Really kind of sets everything to a great start for us. Just want to say thanks.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, got to kick off the year right?
Like I said, it's definitely looking like the right direction. And like I said, I appreciate you guys even giving us a date of when you thought you would have an AMA. And like I said, just being vocal to the community and kind of telling us where you're at is really helping us, I think.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot more to show now that we're actually in the art development side of things. So yeah, we'll figure out ways to make sure that you guys can see what's kind of under construction and get a little bit of a heads up on where we're going. Because in the end, I think the pioneers are kind of like, while you guys will end up being a smaller user base than the rest of everybody else, it's going to be important that the pioneers facilitate a lot of the world so that other people can also enjoy it.
A quick question, the troll that I am. I started poking around the website, in the last 24 to 48 hours, hoping that I, catch some early releases or see some changes on the website as well. Do we see any of that, kind of in the spirit of the timeline? Just curiosities. Obviously, I'm not trying to, pull everything out of you. You guys are doing a great job, and like I said, your communication's been excellent. Just trying to get an idea of like, will we actually see any kind of like user interface in the next kind of, I would say, 3 months within that time period?
I don't think so. I mean, we obviously, like, we're trying to work towards a build, and since it's based in WebGL, it'll go through the site. So whatever's needed for the website to support it will be the goal, because that's part of the development strategy, right? And yeah, we have some things planned where we're trying to make things a little interesting for access and how we can create frictionless access, which is a big part of Web3, I believe. And yeah, so there'll be some changes eventually, but right now, like as far as the aesthetic of the website and everything, no, because we're still working on our art Bible, branding, imagery, all that kind of stuff. And at some point, we will kind of upgrade everything. But in the meantime, we just need to focus on getting stuff up and running.
Great. Thank you. Like I said, appreciate you coming out today and helping us and supporting us, and appreciate your direction. And we're looking forward to all being able to play together.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, Golden. Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me on this if I am wrong, Josh, but a lot of the interface for you to interact with the world will actually be in that Unity instance.
Correct.
Instead of on the website and going to different web pages to do something, I believe a lot of it will all be in that Unity instance and contained in there.
Yeah, but we're at the point now where a Unity plugin is basically just a web applet, so you can make it feel pretty frictionless that way.
There's a couple of questions in the Discord. Sorry to cut you off there, Kyle. The first one we have is: Do we plan an alpha test? Do we plan to have an alpha test for builders? If yes, when will it be? So I assume let's talk about when we talk about building on the actual world.
An alpha test for building specifically?
Yeah, I suppose it's like early access for builders specifically.
I don't know about that. That's a pretty far ways off still. I would think that our focus right now is just that first build because that's our first stress test. That's our first multiplayer instance testing. Yes, it'll be blank matrix, but you'll be able to access your land plot. And again, this is progressional, so it's not like I'm going to allow you guys to have a bunch of high rises right out of the gate. It's not going to work like that, right? Like you're gonna have to start a little smaller than that. So we'll see. We'll see how we do that. I think it'll depend on a lot of things, and I don't think it'll be a head start though. That's for sure.
Yeah, with you. Another question that we've got coming through is regarding the game client. Have you reconsidered the possibility of creating a standalone client, or is it still only browser based?
No, we're building browser based. It's the right choice in today's market because basically, if you want to be a platform, you shouldn't be on a platform. That's kind of rule number one if you're actually planning to build a platform. And while we're building a product, an entertainment product first, the goal is that once we have everything in place, it becomes a platform, right? Because you have all the pipelines needed for content that can keep it rolling and affordable to do that while adding users and then having the right monetization so that not only, obviously this is going to be the challenge here is like how we make it so that the pioneers can prosper as well as through those systems. So, that's why we're really going to have to lay that out and figure out each step.
All right. So there's another question talking about stacking of land. So I'm just getting clarity on the question as well. But as far as it goes, will you landowners have the option of stacking upwards and also merging plots? So it's a multiple question there.
Well, I know about the merge. That's fine, right? Like, you can chain your ones. Building up. What do you mean by that?
I suppose multi-level is that.
So looking at that, I believe the user might be asking about staking.
Yeah, I was gonna say because
Roger, yep.
You can't stack the plots; they don't move, right? But you'd be able to if you own a neighboring plot, then yes, you could merge it and then have those two adjacent, and we'll figure out how those connect and everything. We've been working out the actual land plot diameters and all that kind of stuff while we're setting up the blank matrix. So yeah, that's stuff we're working on right now. But staking's different. That's a separate system altogether, right? Like that's not going to be an inherent system into ours.
Yeah, with you. There will, and this might be taking a step forward, but like there will be some form of in-world token currency, whatever you want to call it, to actually survive. We need something like that, right?
Well, I mean, again, that's part of the model, right? The whole game design model about how this will work, and I don't want to put it all out there right now, but will there be in-world currencies? Absolutely.
Awesome. Leno just asked that question, so that's answered, Leno. It's definitely not going to be, and I'll answer part of this as well. It definitely won't be for like Flow or Ethereum or anything like that. That's not something that we're looking at doing at this point in time.
No, Flow and Ethereum are basically cash money in this world. Okay, you're going to be able to use those currencies on either Matrix, and you can use them as direct purchases. So if you wanted to directly purchase something from someone, you could use Flow or Matrix to do that, or sorry, Flow or Ethereum to do that.
It's cool. And this was kind of a question for Kyle and yourself, Kyle being the CMO of Matrix World. When do you think a marketing push or marketing should happen in the development progress as well?
So that is, so I think that's something very interesting to look at, like what kind of strategies we can take here. But I believe that the best thing for us to do is to continue to share with the user base and the community as we build, but to really hold off on a hard and heavy marketing push until we're getting closer to an actual release, right? And I think that will be better for retention, especially if you have some of these users and they get there through marketing, and then there's not much of a way for them to participate in the world. So I think marketing would be something that really ramps up a lot as we get closer to a release. And as we're building, we will continue to communicate and to share with the community and the larger ecosystem what we're working on.
I suppose the point is there is like, and Josh, you speak to this really well. It's kind of like when someone comes to us and says, "Hey, can you build something for me?" The conversation may get a little bit, I don't want to say awkward, but it's a different conversation to when we're ready to show them something. Yep, this is our package. This is what you can do. This is what you can build. This is how to utilize it. And then all of a sudden, the other side, they go, "Wow, this is amazing. You guys are so set up, ready to go," and it looks a lot more professional. Josh, yeah, you speak to that really well. Do you want to share that a little bit?
Yeah, it's an important part of all this is that brands, projects, retail, everybody can have a way to facilitate what they can do on web now in 3D. That's the goal of metaverses, right? Is like, can you allow for a new way for people to approach all of these things: entertainment, socializing, retail, launching a product, or just seeing a brand and going and finding their customer service information, right? And there's no reason why that can't all work in 3D and we can simulate it and immerse it and all that kind of stuff. So, that to me is like, we're going to do all of those things, but you have to be realistic in what you can actually pull off, especially by not over-promising early, because then you're locked into something specific where things could change, because that's how development works. Development is development, from the outside, I know it's like it's project based and everything, but the thing people forget about is that development is artistic for this type of thing, like games, metaverse, all that. There's an artistic side to that, and artistic is very challenging to cultivate and create on a project, because a project has what we call a burn rate, and you're always spending money, by trying to develop things. So you don't have a lot of time to do those things. So kind of the general rule there is, don't overpromise. Wait until you can prove it, then you can start to talk about it. Then you can start to show it. Then you can start to test it. Then you can release it. So, that's kind of where we're at as well, is like, we know what we're going to do to facilitate with our client base. And we have some very interesting clients that have already either partnered with us or who have contacted us interested in what we are going to do with the metaverse space. They're all looking for unique ways to bring their brands to new levels. And we see that across a lot of metaverse plays right now, and even across transmedia inside of games like Fortnite and whatnot. So, yeah, that's a big part of the plan. But again, cart before the horse, right? Like, we have to be able to prove our base functionality. And I think actually it's kind of the pioneers come first, right? It's like, it's pioneers, then we figure out how to help both standard users and the all the outer brands and clients that will want to work inside of a metaverse space. But we need to work on the pioneers first, because the pioneers are going to be the ones who kind of allow for these people to expand outside of like the base elements of the world. And it'll be up to the pioneers to actually expand and allow for more people to come and take that space up and leverage it.
Yeah, it's sorry, go here.
No, I was gonna jump in with the next question there. So I see we got one from Raven Coos that kind of got, I think we missed it. But Raven was asking regarding the game client. Now he knows, we have plans to have our browser-based client, but they're asking if there's any possibility of creating standalone clients. And I know this would be down the road, but would we explore standalone clients or mobile clients maybe in the future?
I guess that was at the forefront of that question, which was it's just not a reality, I think, right now for something like this. If you can build this in WebGL, and there's challenges for building in WebGL, but there's challenges if we build this on Steam. There's challenges if we make it a standalone launchable client. Um, I think the thing we want to avoid is being a platform on a platform first, and then figuring out how we can actually pull this off on whatever else is available. And I would say WebGL gives us a lot of benefits like frictionless entry, right? Like you can access it on any device basically. And yeah, it creates complications with controls, draw distance, other things that'll become limitations. But you develop around those. You try to find ways to do that. I'm not going to rule it out because I think with the maturation, again, this is a long-term play product, right? We want to be still working on this in a decade from now, where we now have everything operational. We're adding content continuously, and it's just growing the world exponentially, right? And so to get there, I would never rule it out because one, I think within that decade, there's going to be the eventual switch from our standard mediums of 2D screens is going to start to move into 3D, and you're going to see by Q2 of this year is where that kicks off when Apple releases their first headset. And then that'll be the start, right? They'll fine tune that over the next 2 to 3 years. Then they'll have their killer model where it's just a pair of glasses and not a full headset. And once they get there, then you're going to start to see that switch. And so I'm not going to rule it out because I think one of the things we think about when we design this is how can we ensure when we build this that one day it can actually port to VR, or if it needs to be AR, right? Like we don't know where it's going to go, but you can think about that when you build a 3D world. And so I'm not going to rule it out because I think VR, you're going to have to support it at some point. I'm thinking about that from an immersion standpoint too, because I know VR products really well, and I know what works and what doesn't. And so while this is just a WebGL product initially, that's more so that we can facilitate anyone being able to come and experiment with this. That's one of our killer features, is that this is going to be something that, eventually you're going to be able to share with your friends very easily, and they're going to be able to jump into your spaces very easily. That's a big goal.
Speaking of getting into places and moving around, is there going to be a bridge between the two worlds? Or separate entities, or yet to be determined?
Well, each matrix is its own entity, and then you can travel between the two as much as you want. You can just go to its map and portal to wherever you want on the map.
But you don't foresee like me walking up to the edge of the map and seeing a giant bridge and I run across it, or I maybe get across it in some other form of transport. No, nothing like that.
No, you can port between the two. Like it's I like to think of it as it's a little bit web navigational with the ability to fully traverse the worlds. Like we're going to have a travel system in world that you can facilitate. I don't want to talk about it or show it yet, but you guys will see it eventually, right? And you'll see like there'll be ways to have fun and bomb around the world, but in the end, we want to ensure that it's like you see this with open worlds, right? It's like, well, we're not going to lock away content by making you have to traverse it just because you're in a virtual world. Half of this is about the virtual world, but the other half is about facilitating the ability to jump to any good experience that you want, so that you can use this more as more like a website than even a game. You get to go where you want, do what you want, kind of thing. Unless somebody locks out their experience, right, and locks it away, then you can't go there. That's it.
We've got a question that's just come through. It's not about the project, so you don't have to answer it if you don't want to as well. But I don't know if you know Meta's consulting. It would be their CTO, John Carmack, recently stepped down from his role in Meta. Do you have any thoughts, feelings about that?
Well, I mean, I grew up on Quake. Quake's the game that triggered me into game development. So, Carmack's obviously a legend for me. He's a really smart guy. He reminds me of Tim Sweeney. Carmack and Tim Sweeney are the two older programmers that like still have a really good grasp on the market, even though they're super rich dudes that probably have been very disconnected from the standard user for many, many decades. They still seem to understand what's in front of them and how to get there. And so, yeah, I see that as a very telling element to Meta's failure, is if they couldn't even retain Carmack, who is a visionary and could have really helped them push that forward in a lot of ways. To be honest, I think they're cursed because of Palmer Luckey. I think that's actually why Meta's in the toilet. Is the whole Oculus started with a poison pill, and it's just continued to be poisoned at every step of the way. And yeah, I think my prediction is that Zuckerberg will step down at the end of this year, and they probably at some point will drop Meta, because I just don't see them ever understanding how to make a user-friendly product. It's just not in their nature. They're app makers. They're not experience makers.
This Twitter space has been filled with after, mate. You told us Apple's releasing a headset, which I'm sure they will be eventually, but
that's a confirmed thing.
Oh, is it? You've also told us to short Facebook stocks, or Meta.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that, because Facebook's got a lot of power still. They have the user base. You got to look at where all the users are, and they still have a very, very large installed user base. So they, I wouldn't say short them just because of Meta. And Meta has a lot of options, I think, kind of how they could succeed. It's just, are they going to? From what I've read, they have so much animosity inside of Meta toward Zuckerberg and what he envisions for this, that nobody's connected with that. And I totally get that, because at a director level, my job is to really ensure that everyone on my team understands the vision that we're trying to accomplish. And that's his problem, is I don't think his vision is being actually accomplished. Like, they don't understand why or how, and he's just like, he's got it in his head, but he doesn't quite get it.
No, that's cool. Thank you. And yeah, anything that's said or speculated about on here is not financial advice or true, besides anything to do with Matrix World. The next question we have coming in, it might be too early to speculate this, but do you have any estimate on how many players each land could support in multiplayer?
Well, I would look at general functionality with game engines for that. And right now, you're looking at anywhere between a 40 to 70 person range of maximal performance if you're using Unreal or Unity. Unity is a little shorter, so Unity is probably about a 50 player max. But to me, that's more than enough. I mean, it gets unwieldy when you start getting more than 50 people in a room, too. That's the other thing that people forget. I think, other side, yes, they're using Improbable. And so I'm hoping that they design their product to be mass room ability, but like, you have to facilitate that. Otherwise, it becomes a complete mess in those spaces. Like, like I said, I worked on Club Penguin. I've seen some messy rooms, right? We've had hundreds of people in one room because a celebrity shows up, and then it's just a sea of penguins and you can't see anything, right? It's just insanity. So we'll see how they handle it. I know for us, we're looking at doing instanced spaces. And so I think ours is a little bit more personal than massive. You know what I mean? Like, we're not trying to pull off festivals and giant party rooms. I mean, we want to be able to have lots of people in a room, but it's got to be about functionality first, and like what you can do in there, not how many people you can have.
It's awesome. Thank you. I don't have 50 friends, so I won't run into any issues there.
Right.
There's two people typing in the chat, so I'm just waiting for those to come through. We've got Leno and Raven still typing. Really quickly, thank you for everyone for coming in today and talking about this here. We have been talking about the roadmap for a little while now, so we appreciate you sticking through and kind of chatting to us about this. For the pioneers, some of you have already filled out a feedback form for us, which is greatly appreciated. So I'll be kind of sharing that with our directors and founders over the next couple of days as well. So thank you for that feedback. Question come through. Do we plan to have any utilities for land while teams building?
There'll be something in the build that will be both one for pioneers and one for civilians that visit.
Awesome. Cool. We've got Chris T and Golden both connecting. Chris, if you want to jump up first.
Hey guys, yeah, thanks a lot for having me up here, and thanks Josh for the AMA today. I really appreciate it. One of the things that stood out to me, obviously, when Matrix World posted that tweet a few days ago, was the change in the design of the artwork. And I'm wondering if you could comment on the difference, obviously, from the artwork that we've seen, the sneak peeks that we've seen in the videos and imagery over the last year and a half, where we have, a pixelated avatar, young in age, and you touched on the age of the avatars, but I'm wondering if you could talk about the change in direction and the reasons behind that, and maybe the age of the avatars. Is that intended to attract a wider audience? Wondering if you could give your comments on that.
Yeah, good question. Absolutely, like all of those things is basically what happened is, like I mentioned, I came in about 8 months ago and I had to do a bit of an assessment on what the concept video had, and I know the concept video is what pulled in a lot of people, including myself. So there was a lot of strength to that I really liked and wanted to make sure that we could carry over. But I've worked in these spaces, so I kind of know what the limitations are when you're developing avatar systems and world systems, and we were going down a very problematic path with that style of avatar. And so, we ended up deciding to change it. We tried out some things. We developed a new one that was a little bit more aged up, but didn't really have the visual appeal that we liked. And then once Michael got on board, himself and myself, we kind of worked on figuring out what's a better approach for this avatar system. Because, okay, so here's one of the things that I'll give a little bit of a secret for the game development. From the game development side, a lot of games, when you see them use skin systems, that's actually a cheap way out. It's a lot harder to do a multi-layered avatar system, and so a lot of products will cheap out by doing a skin direct system. Overwatch, Fortnite, all those games, Apex, all that kind of stuff. Like, you're just swapping out a skin, so you can always guarantee the load off of that skin in your 3D space. But once you start getting into layering with objects, and you have like 7 layers on an avatar, and you can have different objects on every one of them, it starts to get a lot more complex. You get a lot more clipping problems and all this stuff. And so, there's no way we could have done that with the small avatars, right? Like, we would have had to have done skins, because the small avatars are too tiny to really do layered slots on. And for me, this was a kind of like, I wanted to put the time in on the layered system, because it's important to me that it's not about playing a character in this. It's that you get to create your character, dress them up for whatever experience you want to go out and do, right? And so that's where that level of customization needs to be, and how we're moving forward. And to facilitate that, we needed to have a better avatar model, better 3D character model to leverage. And we also decided that, yes, we wanted to age them up, because, obviously, like, the entertainment and engagement side of this is important. We want this to be social. We want this to be have a lot of fun factor to it and the world, but we also do want to facilitate the business side, so that projects can have a place to launch and host their assets and be able to show them off in different ways than just a flat 2D page or an OpenSea listing, right? We want to give them a new way to do that. And I'll say we've been prototyping some stuff, and some cool shit's coming out of that too. So I'm really excited about how we could do that. But yeah, that's why the avatars are kind of aged up now and more adult. And you'll start to see, like, we'll develop our core characters. Obviously, the girls are kind of one of our lead characters visually. And then that'll lead to us being able to do different looks and feels. And I'll tell you, this is, again, one of my favorite parts of the world development, is creating a style. We are going a little bit in the future, and so it allows for us to develop out almost a language through the base fashion of the world, which is really cool. So yeah, I'm looking forward to developing that out and figuring out how we can make these avatars look really cool with lots of different looks. so that you guys can actually have your avatars pimped out if you want, and represent different things.
Cool. Very good question. Thank you for that, Chris. Just making sure you don't have any follow-up before we let Golden speak and take control.
No, I'm good. Thanks for that,
Yeah.
guys.
Question for you. You were talking about instance for land plots. Question for you. Can you speak anything about size of plots? So, is there any benefit of having a larger plot? Will that give anybody, I would say, not resources, but maybe better building strength? Is there any kind of diversity in wanting to own, let's say 4 separate plots versus plot, or
Yeah, I lost you at the end there, but I think I got where you're going there, Golden. Yes, the larger the plot, it's just like real estate, right? The larger the plot, more ability to build. And our structures are going to be various sizes. So if you actually, when we get further into the progression and the big structures start to be released and that starts to happen, yeah, it's like, if you have a 1x1, you might only be able to have one. And if you've got, a larger plots, it's going to give you a lot more options. So that'll be a part of it. Yeah, I think we're going to try to facilitate as many sizes as we can. So there's a lot of options. I will say though, like the pioneers, right? We're going to start out small, and they'll probably be very much like single locations initially. But I did mention the instancing. That's kind of how it's going to work, is that, the world is on a server, but then when you go into facilities, it will spawn an instance. And so that those are kind of individual instances. And that's a great model to use for something like this, because you don't want to have those all live in your server. It would cause it, you'd never see anybody else, because if somebody's like in the building next to you, you don't know, but they're taking up a slot. And if 20 of them are in there, then you're never going to see anybody, right? So instancing is how we allow for a lot of people to access this without putting huge strains on the core servers, and still be able to facilitate everyone and have spaces where, people can do an AMA, they can do a product launch, they could have a private party, a public party that just, random people find, stuff like that, like all those things. We want to make sure we facilitate that in the best way.
Thank you.
Last one. Now, a couple more questions in the Discord. What do you think will have the ability to host AMAs in World?
Sorry, what was the beginning of that?
Sorry, I kind of stuttered as I was asking. Will we be able to host AMAs inside the World?
I mean, I don't want to go get too into specifics of how those are going to work, but we're trying to build a tool set so that you could actually host anything you want, right? Like giving you the ability to do an AMA. When you break that down to functionality, really all it is a microphone with access. So yes, absolutely, it's definitely going to be one of the objects that we're going to create. It'll be like a microphone with admin access, and then you can share access and set parameters on it and everything. But that's just one tech piece we're looking to develop, and a lot of those things have to go through prototype. We got to figure out how they're going to work. So it's one of our goals, but we have it's one of the phases near the end of this year that's not on that roadmap, but it's definitely part of something that I work on with the prototype team, is developing out various objects that will then facilitate different use case rooms. And that's kind of the next step. Once we have all the infrastructure of the structures, then we can start looking at that. And, again, it's going to take time to develop these, because some of them have to be prototype, some of them are very straightforward, but in the end, they just there's a lot to develop there, right? These don't come that easily, but we've got some really cool ones that we've prototyped that I'm super excited about, and like how you'll be able to facilitate in these spaces, and like what you could do there. If it's the even just the first pass on some of this stuff has been really cool, and I can't wait to actually get in there and build the details and figure out exactly how you can leverage them.
What about video as well? Like, I suppose this is just all up in the air right now, but is that a consideration?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the core of what we're trying to do is like make sure that you can bring in media to your spaces and decorate with it, right? And so that you can leverage media in different ways, be it, a YouTube link or images that you upload, stuff like that. We're figuring out how those are going to work. Video's a little bit more complicated because a lot of it comes from sources these days, and that's adds complication to streaming and stuff like that. So we'll see. We'll see. I can't make any promises right now about how it's going to work, but we're definitely making it work. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see something like a Twitch platform that you could then integrate and kind of that
Exactly.
way it's filtered through. Yeah, that was cool. There was one comment that was made, and it's not a question, but we'll read it out. It's by one of the listeners at the moment, Apes of Wall Street. Right, not so much a question, but as a comment. But I appreciate the team is moving to realistic development practices into the metaverse. We've seen so many projects find ways to cut corners to be the first to market, but it's
Mm,
ultimately a double-edged sword. Sadly, we've seen projects like NFT Worlds focus less on development and more on monetization, but
sure.
watch the corners they've cut to come back to haunt them. Refreshing to see a team create from the ground up.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely part of what, I came here for was that when I was looking at viable metaverse plays and I saw that concept video and then talk to the team and everything, it showed me like they understand the requirements needed to make this work. And I think when I talked to some of the other ones, they did not, and it kind of scared me because that means they're just trying to get something out there and then see what it does. It's like that's not the way to do this. You got to plan for long term and then build towards that no matter how long it takes. And the nice thing about products like this is you can put it out there halfway through and it can still work and you can build on top of it, especially if you have user generated content. That's a good way to help that work and facilitate. So it's yeah, it's gonna be tough, but that's a key element for us is that you know I guess this is how I've always seen it is like, okay, the real estate model, you're not going to buy real estate in a place you can't live, right? Like, why would you, unless you're an investor, of course, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, at the base model of why would I buy this land if there's nothing there that I can do with it? So to me, it's about facilitating that and making sure that the land that we offered and sold now pays off long term by having a lot of use cases around it so that not only do the landowners prosper by owning it, but, and this is the key to this all, it's got to be worth anybody coming to visit it, right? Like that's how we facilitate that. And that's going to be the challenge. So, yep, that's why we can't cut corners because we have to make sure that it works for every type of user that visits this product.
It's really cool. You'll hear some of these numbers tomorrow when I share with you in one of our meetings that we have. But it was interesting when I asked the question to some of the pioneers about why they purchased their land. 86% said because they want to build in it. Like there was a small percentage that actually said, well, the other percentage that said it's purely investment flipping. And I think that's a
Right.
reality. That's fine. You're allowed to do that. People sell liquidity
Yeah.
is great. But it's really cool to see that 86% of people actually want to build and create something.
Yeah, like I understand too, just from obviously from a purchase standpoint, that anybody who invests in land is looking for an ROI, right? Like you want a return on your investment. I get that. That's totally understandable. But I think that you have to look at the ROI as being not that you can just flip it, which is a viable strategy to make a few bucks on top of something that you bought early and then sell it later. But like even to get there, that means that you have to wait until the use case adds value to that. And like again, this is a more of a long-term play. So yes, I do think like people who want to play with investment on it might have to wait a little bit for that to kind of come to fruition, and that's okay. For the people who want to build though, that's yeah, then they want to stay up to date so they can see how we're going to facilitate that. What level of build are we allowing, and then what is the output? Like what can you actually leverage that with? And I think that's at the core of this whole product is really in what you build now facilitates the world progressing.
It's cool. Thank you. I am fresh out of questions, and I think there's no more hands going up. So I'm happy to see if there's one more round and see if anyone else has anything to ask. But yeah, it might be time to wrap up and let you get to your Sunday night.
All right. Well, appreciate all the questions, guys. And, obviously we'll be talking more because we're starting to put more stuff out there. So, I'll come back and chat once we show something else or we talk about the build coming up or whatever that is.
It's awesome, Carl. Any last words from you?
All right. Yeah, I think this is a good spot to wrap up. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's continued to support us and, follow the progress. And Happy New Year as well to everyone here.
Awesome. Thanks.
So with that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you all. We're very excited for what 2023 holds, and we really can't wait to build this world together with the community. A lot of cool stuff in the works. So talk soon.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Thanks. Bye.